Hi. If you're watching this video because you'd rather not sell a kidney to buy BMW injectors from the dealer, or maybe you want to check if the previous owner of your BMW succumbed to the temptation for eBay injectors, sit tight, you're in the right place. But if you are looking for more detailed background information about these injectors, who made them, how they fail, and whether they can be repaired, check the description below for a different video to cover those queries. I won't be answering questions on this video of that nature, and I'm also not going to be your personal guru to assess an eBay listing for you. Watch this video and make up your own mind. This video applies to all N54 engines, as well as the early N63, S63 and N74 engines, often referred to as the non-TU variants. The information is partially applicable to the poverty pack N43 and N53 engines, as the development path of their identical looking injectors was similar, including the culmination in an Index 12. That's a warning to the aforementioned group to steer clear of identical looking injectors that were not designed to operate in your higher performance engine. Part numbers matter. During this video, I'm going to be referring to my Injector Identification table. This table is a work in progress, but I don't want to remake this video every time I adjust a manufacturing date range or make an amendment. So as I get more information, I intend to update the table, and I'll put a link in the description below to the most recent version and any additional information you need to interpret it. Keep in mind that I never worked for BMW or the injector manufacturer. I've accumulated the knowledge and information by visually assessing injectors and documenting what I see, as well as reading between the lines of BMW technical service bulletins typically issued for recalls. Speaking of which, I speculate that due to emissions-based recalls and extended warranty programs, mostly in the USA, there were tens of thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands of used injectors replaced as part of BMW campaigns. Reading some of the old forum posts, as well as BMW's changing attitude in the bulletins, it is clear that a large number of the replaced injectors were in perfect working order. Working or not, they were supposed to go in the dumpster behind the workshop, but many found their way into a new grey market as prices skyrocketed. So I strongly believe that most, if not all, of the fakes you'll come across are actually genuine older injectors with some cheap makeup, a clever facelift, or some Frankenstein surgery to impersonate a newer injector. Some might even work perfectly, and the anecdotal online evidence seems to support this. There are multiple versions or revisions of these injectors, which are referred to as indexes. Each index had internal changes over its predecessor, as well as unimportant physical external changes that allow us to properly identify them. Index 10 was actually the first attempt at making this injector in 2006. Then the numbers followed a reasonably practical order, starting at 01 and finishing at 12, except for a hiccup in the middle and the omission of 10 a second time. There are also one or two indexes that I call unicorns, as they don't seem to exist. If you are here, then you are probably seeking Index 12, which you think are a silver bullet, a magic elixir, or the Holy Grail, depending on your religious beliefs. I can assure you they are prone to fail just like the rest, but because of the hype, they are nearly always the index the scammers want to impersonate. Apart from one or two exceptions, I haven't seen attempts to fake anything but Index 11 and 12. Now, I can't educate you without also educating the scammers, so unfortunately, this video might help them to get better at fooling both you and I. Let's jump on the table. The main table is arranged from oldest index at the top, starting with Index 10, to the lowest index at the bottom, Index 12. These are the genuine injectors with a BMW logo printed on the front of the plastic housing. Under that main table is some of the OE equivalent injectors in the marketplace. prior to about 2017, there was no option but the genuine BMW branded injectors. You might find references to aftermarket options like the FJ1050 injector from Standard Motor Products that sold for less than $100 in the day, but these were actually genuine BMW branded injectors that probably fell off the back of a truck or fell off the parts shelf into the trunk of an underpaid Californian BMW dealer employee. Back to the table and the injectors. The index is printed on the top front right corner of the plastic housing. It is always two numerical digits, 10, 01, 02, etc. The A or B letter after some indexes on my table is never on the injector itself. It's just my way of designating the hiccup where an Italian factory worker lost count and went back a few numbers. Yes, they used index 05, 06 and 07 twice, but the injectors themselves were very different each time. The index number is the first thing to change on the fake ones. They might scratch it off and attempt to reprint it. Often it's easy to see when they do that. The text for the index should be the same size, color and font as the numbers to the left of it. In other cases, they replace the whole plastic housing, sometimes using completely different font and colors. But in both cases, there are scammers who have nailed it, so never take the index printed on it at face value. Move across the table from the index number to make sure the other conditions are met. The colors on this chart don't have any meaning. They are just visual cues to show you where changes have happened. There have been three distinct generations of the injector body. The visible changes appear on the cylindrical part of the stainless steel body below the plastic housing. For Gen 1, the wings and locating tab appear to be CNC machined out of the same piece of stainless steel as the central body. The chamfered step is about 37 millimeters or 1.5 inches from the point of the injector tip. These are indexes 10, 01 and 02. The change to Gen 2 for indexes 05A, 06A, 07A and 04B was probably a cost-cutting measure. The wings and locating tab are now a single piece of stainless steel artistically folded into a 3D shape and fused or welded to the central body. The chamfered step is in the same position, 37 millimeters or 1.5 inches from the tip. The final Gen 3 body used on indexes 05B through to index 12 has an extra groove in line with the locating tab, and the wings and locating tab are separate 2D pieces fused or welded to the central body. The chamfered step has moved. It is now 50 millimeters or 2 inches from the injector tip. The cost to alter the body is probably not feasible, so it's an easy way to spot some fakes where a scammer uses an earlier index with a Gen 1 or Gen 2 body as the basis for creating a fake index 11 or 12. While we are looking at the body, on every injector I've personally handled, of every index, there is a laser-etched QR code near the tip. Admittedly, you have to hold it in just the right light to see it. I expect it is a feature of every genuine injector. The part number can be found to the left of the index number along the top of the front plastic housing. There were at least 5 part numbers used in manuals, service bulletins and packaging for these N54, N63, S63 and N74 injectors we are covering. But only 3 of those part numbers ever appeared on the genuine injectors themselves. This excludes the different part numbers used for the N43 and N53 injectors, including the single part number normally printed on those, 13537589-048 for reference. Some people claim to have successfully mixed these across the engine divide, but we aren't covering that today. Back to the 3 numbers used on our injectors. The first part number was 13537537 317, abbreviated to the last three digits, 317, used on only the first injectors, index 10. The second part number, ending in 138, was used on index 01 through to index 07A. The third and final part number, ending in 261, was introduced in the middle of the hiccup with index 04B and carried through to index 12. And as I mentioned earlier, those N43 and N53 injectors all appeared to use the part number ending in 048. The next column is the rear date. This is something new I discovered that has never been documented before, as far as I'm aware. On the back of every plastic housing in the bottom right corner, you should find a 5-digit code etched or melted into the plastic. It is not part of the mold and it's not printed on. On early injectors, it tends to be deeper and rougher than newer injectors. The 5-digit code is the production date of the plastic housing itself, expressed as day, 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 year, year. So 33406 is the 334th day of 2006 or 30 November 2006. 02108 translates to the 21st day of 2008 or 21 January 2008. Don't try and start counting days on an old calendar, just Google it. I believe the plastic housing was injection molded around the finished injector body, generally 1 to 14 days before final testing and calibration, so this etched date can be considered as a relatively accurate production date. If it is scratched off, has anything other than 5 digits, or has been modified, then be very careful. If it's missing, then the plastic housing has been replaced and you should reconsider. Of course, from today, every scammer is now going to start etching a satisfactory code where they didn't before, so it might not be such a good telltale in the future. The injector production date is the only vertical text on the front face of the plastic housing, alongside the calibration values and QR code. The format is year, year, month, month, day, day. So 080123 equates to the 23rd of January 2008. This production date did not start appearing on the front of the injectors until the start of 2008 with index 06A. So this makes it easy for a scammer to add it to the blank spot on the front of a pre-2008 injector. In that case, the Gen 1 or Gen 2 body will be the giveaway that it is not a real index 11 or 12. Hopefully you catch that logic. The date on the rear must be before the date on the front, but from my observations, the difference between these dates is generally 1 to 14 days and never more than 45 days. So this is also where I expect my charts will vary in future as I get confirmed examples of injectors. Let me explain. Because the existence or purpose of the rear etching isn't documented anywhere, and photos of the front and rear of an individual injector are rare, I can only form the date range for pre-2008 injectors using dates I've personally witnessed. I'm also rounding out the date range to whole months, and so there appears to be some time overlap between indexes. Once the front date range appeared in 2008, I was able to use a lot of online photos from reputable sources to gather dates, for which I just copied those front date ranges over to the rear date range column once I saw they were generally in alignment by auditing all the injectors in my possession. But there are still gaps in the date ranges, maybe because I haven't seen or found an injector from that period, or possibly because none were manufactured or released for that period. Over time, I expect these front and rear date ranges will widen in places, so don't be alarmed if you see something with a date slightly to the side of my range, especially if it isn't covered by the neighbouring index. Some of the scammers that went to all the trouble of adding dates to early injectors or making whole new plastic housings completely fluffed up the date format, either missing digits like this early injector with an attempt to add a production date to a pre-2008 injector, but they left out a digit, presumably a 0 in front of the 3, which would have made it 150324, the 24th of March 2015, which is a valid date itself. Or the scammers use dates from another planet, like this injector made on the 74th day of the 46th month of 2016. I can't recall if that was a Tuesday or a Friday. Each injector has two lines of calibration values on the left front side of the plastic housing. Both lines are 3 digits long. The top line I'm calling the flow rate and the bottom line I'm calling the latency. This video is not about debating whether that terminology is right, but you can be assured the ranges are generally sound. There is no published range, so like the dates, I'm documenting the range by assessing genuine injectors. So the normal ranges for flow rate and latency have been based on hundreds of injectors, but they might get slightly wider by a few points, but nothing more. The low latency range is unique to index 10 and is currently based on a sample size of about 10 injectors, so it is more likely to get a bit wider over time as I assess more index 10 injectors. Some scammers that are replacing the plastic housing have no idea these values need to be within a certain range, so run away if you see any values that are significantly different. For example, the current flow rate range for all injectors is 571 up to 603. So if you see anything lower than 560 or higher than 610, it is not a factory value and the injector is questionable. If you are assessing a whole set of injectors, it would be feasible that all the other markings would be identical to each other, but never the random calibration values. If a set of 6 injectors have identical calibration values, then walk away. The odds of that happening are 15,552 to 1. If you own a V12 N74, the odds of winning a $1 billion lottery are better than finding a full set with identical calibration values. So maybe you got scammed into buying an early index being passed off as an index 12, but you might still be able to use it, presuming the injector is not faulty. Remember that most injectors that were replaced during the BMW campaigns had not failed. So here is the silver lining. If you are sure the scammer hasn't replaced the plastic housing, then it's highly likely the calibration factors are original, and then you can use the rest of this table to assign an exact or approximate index to the injector before deciding if you want to mix and match indexes. It is contrary to BMW rules, but many of us do it without any issues. More on that in a different video. Now maybe I'm showing my age, but this code etched onto the top right corner of the injector just below the connector looks like the letter style of a dot matrix printer. I'm not discussing the purpose of these codes here. All you need to know is where to expect them. They appear on every index 11 and index 12 that I've seen as 2 digits. The first is a letter of the alphabet, and the second could be interpreted as an O or 0 or perhaps just a square box. They appear on some index 08 and index 09s, but I've only seen them on those with 1 digit, a letter of the alphabet. They were not used on any other indexes, but that can just provide the scammer a blank canvas to add it. Flip the injector over again and check the back of the plastic housing. The Siemens VDO logo was part of the mold and cast into the top edge, appearing as raised text on every injector before sometime in 2014. It was never etched, engraved, melted, or printed on. Those would be fakes. At the date of recording this video, I've only narrowed down the range when this logo disappeared to be between January 2014 and September 2014, in the early days of the Index 12. But if you're holding a supposed Index 12 with production dates after 2015 and this logo is present, then you are holding a fake. You will also find a raised 2-digit code on the left side, a number, often 1, 2, 3 or 4, and a letter, often A, B, C or D. This is the identity of the mold used to make that plastic housing. Like the logo above, if it's etched or melted in or printed on, then it's fake. I have seen some clever fakes which included it in their mold, but they spaced the digits further apart than a genuine injector, but that takes a trained eye to spot. Here's a bonus tip that might help you identify if a scammer has attempted to replace the plastic housing. On every genuine injector in my possession, from the oldest Index 1 in 2007 to the newest Index 12 in late 2014, after the Siemens VDO logo had disappeared, there is a small bump on the angled edge of the plastic housing below the electrical connection. I'm not certain, but I believe Siemens VDO create this housing through a process called plastic injection overmolding. This bump is the feed point or gate mark where the molten plastic is injected into the mold cavity, and its position is fixed by the design of the mold. It's not a conclusive test if you do see it in that location, because the scammers may have copied the injection point in the design of their mold. But if you don't see it in that exact location, then you can be confident it is a fake plastic housing. Back to the front. The BMW logo appeared on all genuine injectors. If you look closely, the printing is very distinctive. The shaded quadrants of the logo are actually individual printed lines. The B, M, and W letters should be properly spaced, crisp, and not touching the circles above and below them. The scammers often seem to murder the logo if they attempt to reprint it. At this point, it's worth noting that the printed information on genuine injectors can fade significantly, but it never completely disappears. The final columns on the table, the front and rear QR codes, were on every genuine injector. The front code is always above the calibration values, and the rear QR code is above the etched 5-digit date code. The rear QR code is susceptible to fading, but you should always be able to at least see a hint of it. No, you can't scan the QR code for information unless you have the special BMW software to decode it. If you see a QR code where the dot matrix code sometimes appears beneath the connector, then it is a fake. I suspect some scammers tried to print a QR code on the metal body after failing to etch a simple dot matrix code, in the hope a QR code distracts you from checking for the dot matrix code always present on those Index 12s. We already covered the QR code on the tip earlier, but I'm confident it should be on every genuine injector. The rest of the text on the front of the injector should look like this. It doesn't change regardless of the index, and it's even the same text on the N43 and N53 injectors. It's worth noting that the limited number of Index 10 I've seen so far have an additional letter U in the lower right corner on the front. That concludes the table for the genuine BMW branded injectors. Hang around if you want to know about the aftermarket options or some advice on buying injectors. Otherwise, good luck in your search, and please like, subscribe, and share if you found this useful. Now the aftermarket options. I expect the date range is a bit wider, but at least for the later half of 2017, the manufacturer of the genuine injectors, Siemens VDO, or just VDO, was permitted by BMW to sell injectors into the aftermarket. The use of the word permitted is very deliberate, but if you want to know why, you'll need to look out for my other videos. As per normal protocols of their agreement with BMW, they had to remove the BMW logo and part number. They also removed the index, although I have seen emails from an engineer at VDO Siemens, parent company Continental, stating that they are index 12, so I suspect the removal of the index number was to facilitate removal of the part number. The front date stamp should also serve as confirmation they are index 12. What you will find is a laser etched part number above the plastic housing. It is A2C 95211900280. I haven't seen one of these in person and haven't seen a picture of the back of one, so I'm not sure if they have the Siemens VDO logo, date etching and QR code on the back. I will update the table if that info becomes available to me. Anyway, these are the genuine Index 12 BMW injectors. I'm not aware of any fakes of these with the laser etch number, but anything is possible. I have seen some lazy scammers scratch off the BMW logo, part number and index and then try and claim they are an OE version of the Index 12. Much more recently, BMW have allowed Vitesco, formerly known as Siemens VDO, to sell the same injector into the aftermarket. The earliest existence of these I could find so far was October 2023, and they are still available in late 2025 as I make this video. They aren't labelled with an index number, but they are identical to the BMW branded Index 12. I haven't seen the back of one yet, so I don't know what you'll find there, but I'll update the table when I do. I suspect this design will become an easy target for scammers. I have seen pictures of some from an unofficial source that appears to look like they are covered in a series of stickers. If you buy them from a reputable source, it won't be a problem, except the resale value may be lower in future. Now to finish with some advice on buying injectors. In simple terms, you have four options. Option 1, buy new injectors, either genuine or Vitesco branded, from a reputable source like a BMW dealer, FCP Euro, or ECS Tuning. You will get new Index 12s. I shouldn't have to say it, but eBay and Alibaba are not reputable sources. For the N74 V12 owners, maybe you can sell both kidneys. Option 2, venture into the used market for genuine Index 11 and 12s. It is a virtual minefield, but if you diligently follow this guide, you should avoid the fakes, but you'll pay a premium for those indexes. Option 3, buy used genuine injectors from earlier indexes prior to 11 and 12. Index 11 and 12 are newer, so statistically they might have less mileage and be less likely to have failed, but some of these are more than 12 years old, so an Index 08 or 09 at 15 years old is not proportionately that much older. What you will do is sidestep 99% of the fakes, but also keep in mind that most of the working injectors replaced in those recalls were earlier indexes than 08 and 09, so the statistics of getting a working index 10, 01, 02, etc. are possibly higher. Option 4, deliberately buy the fake injectors if the price is low enough and you either have confidence the calibration values have not been tampered with, or you don't care about the calibration values, which is something I'll delve into in a different video. A final hint for buying used injectors: buying singles is Russian roulette with the odds stacked against you. Try to buy whole sets of used injectors that came from the same engine. They will have matching indexes and matching or very similar production dates, but be very wary if more than two have the same calibration values. They were probably all replaced because only one or two failed. I have bought one matching set of 6 where every injector had failed, unfortunately, but most sets of 6 have an average of 4 good injectors after getting them cleaned and serviced. If you budget for some failures and budget for cleaning and servicing, it can be the cheapest way to get good injectors. Thanks again for watching, and bye for now.